Now it's all falling apart. Soon our cities will be washed away by floods, buried in sand, burned to the ground. That's why you found me. Because you're no longer blind to all this.
All right, we are back in. Hell yeah. What's been happening?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Stoked to get it back in, dude. That was super fun. That last episode we did. And yeah, I'm glad we're keeping it rolling for sure.
Well, you to a large extent, my urge and need to really look at San Francisco. I've been so focused on Seattle. And that just the San Francisco stuff was just absolutely blowing my mind. And, you know,
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much here.
Well, it's like
I've been talking about it for days.
These big cities, they're just, especially ones that I haven't spent a lot of time in, because they're all like riddles inside of enigmas and inside of mysteries. And just the bigger the city, the more it feels like the layers are so much more complex. Like here in Seattle, it's even, at least the timeline that we're given is even more recent than San Francisco. Like you guys were like, I would say in terms of the timeline, like 20 years ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And they try to squeeze like all of this stuff that, the scale of San Francisco into that 20 years. Like, sure, we had trolleys and sure we had skyscrapers and
totally,
a pretty significant World Fair and all this, but it just, I've had my hands full just looking at Port Townsend, and that's a little town. I'm still not done with that series.
Totally. I mean, that's how I know, like, and that's how we can tell. Is it echoing by any chance?
Not on my end. Mm-mm.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
But yeah, like this. I mean, looking into the small towns and just all the anomalies that all these small towns just constantly, just like Port Townsend. There's tons of small towns around the Bay Area, and I mean, once you leave the Bay Area, it's pretty much all small towns. More or less, until you get to Sacramento, and like, there's only a handful of like real big cities. And yeah, anyone I look into is just, the onion gets peeled away.
Yeah.
And San Francisco gets deeper every time too, every time I do look at it.
Yeah. And you just have to keep sitting with it and letting all this like wash and percolate and distill and then like come back at it again, But yeah, you're right. Like same thing in Washington. You leave the like the Salish Sea, Seattle, Tacoma, nexus, and you just move east. And yeah, you got these small towns like Ellensburg and Walla Walla that are sort of in the middle of, not necessarily nowhere, but back in that time didn't have like developed infrastructure and transportation networks and railroads and things like this. And so they're kind of, remote. And then you just have these marvels going up. And like, I've heard from people in Walla Walla on my, on my channel, like in the comments, like, yeah, we live here, we grew up here, and we can't understand what we're looking at, like what we see. This doesn't make sense. And they've been there their whole life.
They didn't have railroads there or anything.
Mm-mm.
Huh.
No.
Yeah. That's an enigma in and of itself.
Yeah.
For sure. Because even most of the small California towns, the railroads are just plastered everywhere out here.
Mm-hmm.
So everything's, if it is a town that's still alive, it's because the railroad stayed there for as long, longer than anywhere else, because they always move and change.
Yeah. I had another guy comment that I ought to come out and check his remote town, because there's railroad embankments that have already they've already come and gone, like the the main intercontinental railroad isn't even where these abandoned tracks are. Like they're off somewhere else. Like there was an older, like an even more, more distant past iteration of a railroad system that was just abandoned.
Huh. It'd be interesting to find out. The cool thing about the railroads is like that's seen there's a big wealth of work that people have done already, like the railroad nerd world, and like they're thorough, and you can pretty much find just about anything on the railroads. At least even from their perspective, like through these like super crazy railroader sites. There's like guys like they take pictures, I've been starting to watch these videos because they'll take pictures of whatever they're making their railroad 1889 or whatever, and they'll find as many pictures as they can, and they'll match every single building, every pump along the way, every switch house, every crossing. And yeah, it's just interesting. I haven't found like anything super cool yet, other than just that's awesome.
Right.
But those guys are pretty thorough.
Are they sort of subscribing to history as it's presented, like it happened with time? So they're not. No,
they're just regular old guys.
Yeah, interesting.
And girls. Yeah.
So that'd be interesting. Cool. Yeah, to talk to some people like that and just share notes and
totally.
And because you see these old videos, like really old videos of like at state fairs, and they're just crashing steam engines like at each other, like they had
totally
extra infrastructure and resources just to throw away and as a spectacle.
Totally. It's like while they're building all these transcontinental railroads, they're building these crazy crash tracks for all the world's fairs and shit. The railroads is really, really interests me, and I'm not even sure where it goes, other than the fact that I think that they were reusing previous infrastructures, or at least they had like the maps of the railway system, and basically just copied that. I think probably a lot of these tunnels already existed, or a lot of them might have just been, I'm not sure yet. I haven't quite figured it out. Well, I think it is. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, when you have trolleys being pulled by horses, and it's like clearly these were there operating with some, power source, and then it appears to be that they sort of found it and were putting it back into operation, and the best they could do for the time being until they ran overhead wires or some other thing was strap a harness to a horse and pull it.
Totally.
It's some pretty sophisticated infrastructure to be putting in to pull it with a horse.
Yeah, it's definitely extra. It seems like they could have just made a road.
Because then you have to go back and retrofit what you already did. Like if you put bars and then you have to go back and like somehow rig it up to either a cable car system, which would be underground infrastructure, or overhead electrical. There's a lot of retrofitting for something that you just built in record time. Before the railroad was there.
Yeah, it's wild. It doesn't quite, none of it really adds up. Like you said, the time they built these things in crazy time. They're changing hands insanely. And I also think it's interesting, they talk about how the Chinese built the railroads or whatever. And where the Chinese come from, pretty much right next to what we say is Tartaria. So maybe they did have the maps of the old infrastructure. You know what I mean? Maybe that is why they were building the railroads, because they knew where everything was. They had the maps. Who knows? I've pondered that thought before. Yeah. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. I'm sure there. I mean, so if you accept that this already existed in some form, the buildings, to some degree, the infrastructure, then it was already there. Then you have to, go one layer deeper, and it's like, well, who, how, when? I mean, you don't even have to nail down when, but it's interesting. The how part is really fascinating to me because, like I was saying on a previous conversation, that one of the things that we don't spend enough time with is like just the economy of it. It's like there's the how in terms of the infrastructure and the materials and the transportation, but what about the economics of this? And I was talking to a guy this morning that reached out to me, and we talked for 2 hours on the phone. He's a really fascinating guy, engineer with a PhD. And, I was posing this conundrum to him on what about the economy? Like what sort of economy would support building as many buildings as you want, as far as the eye can see, everywhere, apparently, as like ornately beautiful with like the most, enduring materials, where it's like every inch is ornate, is like considered, every turn of a corner, every archway, every lintel,
Every
has
brick.
Every brick has a place, and that's mind blowing.
Totally.
And so what sort of economy would support that? And he said, without pause, they didn't have an economy of little of scarcity. It wasn't an economy of scarcity.
Right.
And it's like, oh, like it just like light bulb went off because this is what we have, and all of the mayhem and chaos and war and deprivation, everything that comes with an economy and a culture that comes from that, sense of scarcity and fear and trauma, and all that comes from that. What they had was, somehow the time, and it seems like sort of an infinite access to energy, which
right.
next question.
Yeah, and it's pretty much what we've been saying as well. Yeah, that's interesting. An economy that not based off scarcity, just everything, everyone just had whatever it took to build these buildings, like money percent, we think of money. So basically it's just, there was no scarcity of money, or it's just, a thriving, it wasn't, see, that's the thing, is we're so screwed in this whole money mind fuck. It's hard to even imagine any other way. Like,
it really is.
Yeah.
You're right about that. It's because it's a shift of consciousness, right? So if you go from scarcity model to abundance, and it's like, well, take all the time you want, and then while you're doing that, go ahead and teach it to your son and your grandson, these skills, and transfer to them these tools that you got from your grandfather, and
right.
Take all the time you want, and here's all the materials, and they wouldn't have had a fiat currency for sure.
No, for sure. No, it was definitely, I would imagine, it was definitely based on value, like just on value of what you could do, value of work, or whatever. People had their trades, and I feel like it was literally trades. They traded. People, okay, you can frame a house or whatever, you could lay bricks. All right, well, I'll fix your windows, or I'll paint your house, or we'll trade.
Right.
Yeah, it's a trip.
Yeah.
Pat's coming in here. Let's get him in.
Good.
Oh, he's not there, but
he was abducted by a painting.
Yeah. But that's funny though. Actually, I've never thought of like the trades as being traded.
That's a good one.
Shit. Yeah. Fuck.
Right.
Shit, man. God damn.
Guys?
Sometimes the truth in plain sight.
What's up, Pat?
Oh, just running around. Sorry I missed you guys. I didn't fucking
Yeah,
caught up like at a restaurant real quick.
missed our whole discourse on old world economics.
Oh yeah, you guys are talking about the trades?
Yeah. Pretty much. You want to catch him up real quick?
Well, I was wondering that, wondering out loud about, what sort of economy would have supported building these buildings like so beautifully and ornately and exquisitely and plentifully all over Christ and creation back in the old day. And to where it's like, there was, no cost, there was no limit to what they could produce and do and how much time because everything is so exquisitely detailed
Yeah.
in every building.
Right.
And it's like, well, how would they have supported that economically? Because here it's, how it is working in the trades is like, get it done and
Yeah.
value engineer it out if you can't get it done within budget and just keep moving on. And back then they weren't doing that apparently, because if you back engineer an economy from the buildings that we see, there have to have a different type of model that wasn't based upon scarcity.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought for sure.
Yeah, just abundance and the love of it, and
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's like nowadays
craftsmanship.
it's like finance. You got to get the financing before like anyone you can like put one foot in, right?
Yeah.
And back then, I don't know what I mean, just maybe because they had the technology and they were like planning on using it, and that was like the currency, Just we have technology and let's do it,
the know-how, just the currency was their ability to actually do the work, and so that was valued, and it's like, sure, do the work. And
there was like because we're like because a lot of the stories we've talked about this, Casey, is like they a lot of it's like, oh, that slaves did it, like the pyramids, and you're just like,
I think that idea is meant to demoralize us.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, except no one wants to say it was the slaves building pyramids in South America and Mexico and Central America.
No,
but side point.
It was like skills. It was like it was like that's my whole belief system when it comes to like how old societies are in actuality. Like have Göbekli Tepe is like 10,000 years, 13,000 if you add like the new timeline from BC, and that's like if with the Mayans and the Aztecs, they have the calendar that like dates 25,000 years in the big circle of time,
Yeah.
And I always go, well, that would be like a hell of a thing to get right the very first time and then build something the very first 25,000 years, you got it right the first time, I don't know. I mean, I think everything gets passed down anyways, right? Like technology wise, and then you have like the human consciousness that once like one group of people like learn how to build a boat, like somewhere in the earth, another people like build a boat similar to it, and they all kind of have the same kind of like engineering. I mean, like a raft is a little bit different, than like a boat built with aerodynamics that like has less drag, right? And then wind, of course, and onward to steam. I can't imagine it wasn't not passed down through generations. If that makes sense,
Yeah, well, that kind of gets right into the cycles of civilization idea, right? So there would be those that preserve the knowledge and the technology and maybe the astrology or what have you, and pass that down when conditions are right again for the population to sort of do something with it, I suppose.
Right. Yeah. No, because no one got it right the first time, right? And no one got it right the first time.
Well, how do you get a pyramid right the first? How do you get anything right the first time?
Yeah, you know what I mean? They didn't get it right. They went, and to maximize it the way they did too was that means they must have gotten a lot of smaller projects done and then maximized it. So the whole timeline's crazy. I don't even know how long like human civilization has been around, but it's not 13,000 years maxed out at Göbekli Tepe, right? You know,
Mhm.
got it. I wonder if it wasn't like hundreds of thousands of years, you know, of civilization, millions maybe, you know.
Yeah.
Totally, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean,
I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
probably. I mean, countless is a good answer for me. You know,
Yeah.
there's countless civilizations beneath our
countless
feet.
eons.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure. I mean, just what boggles my mind is you mentioned Göbekli Tepe in that 12,000, 13,000
Yeah.
year time frame. Back then, there were mastodons and saber-toothed tigers and woolly rhinoceros and giant sloths and huge flora and fauna everywhere. That
Mhm.
and then, you know, catastrophe, and 80% or whatever, it all got wiped out. But that's something that we don't. It's like this huge like cognitive dissonance. We know so much about what happened 65 million years ago when the dinosaurs got extinct by an asteroid, but like what happened 12,000 years or so ago, where something happened. You know, it's just still this idea is out there that like, well, we hunted the mastodons to extinction. It's like, well, what about all the other big animals that would have eaten us?
Right.
And what about, you know, and then the idea of the oceans rising 400 feet, you know, and the ice sheets melting at that same time. And it's like, we got a bell rung back then. And like, maybe this whole thing that we call civilization in the, you know, since then is really just us kind of trying to sort through or a collective trauma or, you know, put pieces back together.
It's a trip. Yeah, it's a trip for sure. Like to think about it, like, but one thing for sure is they didn't get that calendar that is actually more accurate now with the timeline that we're on now, the Mayan calendar. They didn't get that right the first time though. You know what I mean? That's what I'm just. But then to chisel it out of like granite and stone is just. I didn't get that right the first time. You know, can you imagine getting that, just chiseling the calendar out and getting it right the first time? It's just
you're right about that. Like,
I can't imagine it.
Oops, let's do another one.
Yeah, you know, just do it careful. You know, and that stuff wasn't even done in like one lifetime. I don't think. You know, like.
You think they just kept chipping away at it over generations?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I do. I think so. I mean, yeah, I do think, but the one thing that like kind of stands in the way of like the thought process is like, you know, if you kind of go back to the Patagonia, kind of like all the continents were together and then started separating and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting thing too, because, you know, zebras I think were linked back to like North America before they were linked to like Africa. And I don't know what that in the great, and they say that they went, I can't remember the exact year that they said zebras went from North America to Africa, but it's a lot more. It's like 30,000 years ago, I think.
What about this idea of rather than like, you know, Pangea, where all the land masses were on one side with the coast, there's studies that show that there's the coasts on the other side fit like a puzzle as well.
Yeah.
That's to suggest that, you know, the Earth expanded over time.
Right.
Not just that the land masses migrated to or broke apart, but the Earth actually, you know.
Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah, because all the continents do kind of fit together, like in a, you know, not like a precise way, but like kind of like in a shape way, you know, for sure. Even the old maps, you know, I mean, there's islands but even in today's world, like I think there's islands that disappear in the Pacific, you know, that they don't. There's like 7. We like went over that like one of our shows. That there's islands in the Pacific that just disappear. They're no longer there.
Sure.
Yeah, they pop up and down.
Yeah, and so, even some on like some of like some of the first historic, like Captain Hook, like has islands in the middle of the Pacific that don't exist anymore. And there's like a couple like in Greenland that the Vikings map that aren't there anymore. I can't remember those ones. My memory doesn't like get the names right, but the story is that like they were there on one map and then they're missing. And then of course the map of California being an island, which we like went over a million times. So it's just like, I don't know. The history is sketchy. But it's hard, like maybe like there, in my belief, I think maybe like there is someone that like knows all the history, right? Like
I mean, there's some people.
Yeah. Who are those
sure.
people? Yeah.
No, it's a trip. And, I hear like rock people all the time talk about this mountain was formed 350 million years ago. It's like, I mean, how can you even say, how could you feel good about yourself calling out how this is 350 million years ago, bro? Trust me, man. I drank like fucking 50,000 beers that night, bro. You know what I mean? I feel like,
well, they got the Farallon Islands like off of San Francisco that are part of the Sierra Nevada, mountain range. But and you go, whoa, how'd they end up there?
Right.
I don't know. That stuff always kind of like leaves me just going, yeah, someone knows there's at the top of all this stuff,
I've been starting to think lately, so that, they say all these mountains and volcanoes were pushed up from the earth.
Right.
And I'm starting to really think that, that's just some big bullshit. The reason they're there, I mean, I'm sure some have, because there's been some proof we can see, but I feel like most of the world has been washed away, basically. Like most of these mountains are there because we washed away the mud and the earth off them.
Oh, with the hydraulic mining for sure.
Yeah, big time.
You know what I mean?
Big time. So I don't know. I'm starting to kind of just think about that, especially today, just being in the city. These guys, this house we're working on, they're drilling down for the piers. There's 20 feet of mud before it hit bedrock on this like 30-degree hill looking above everything. Like it was just all clay mud.
So the question is, where did it come from? And are these glacial deposits or what? And even if like mud flood is true, where did that mud come from?
Sure. That is the $1 million question for sure.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, as much rain as we've had lately, like even that kind of reshaped the coastline, like,
for sure.
So much mud comes out of these rivers that during low tide, it just pretty much covered like the whole reef for like a quarter mile of mud just coming out of a river that flows normally year round, but just the extra water just moved it all the way through, and you can see the mud go out there, but nothing like a glacier melt that's like, 3 miles of like frozen ice all melting at one time, like that Randall Carlson kind of thing.
Yeah, where most insane flash flood ever.
Yeah.
So you don't you don't subscribe to the Randall Carlson version of catastrophism?
I think it's really close. There's a lot of things that make sense. Yeah, I mean, the amount, like he has like some numbers that are like incredible. Like he got the weight down of like the glacier and that lifting off the like permafrost
and how much the deflection would have like.
Yeah. He has that. I mean, he's pretty much brilliant. Like, I mean, I don't think he's closed-minded, but I think he does have like a cutoff date with like his theory, though. You know what I mean? It's right at like Graham Hancock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like they have it like in both their theories like match up right and Göbekli Tepe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then anything past that kind of gets a little like strange. They don't go past that much, which is fine. I mean, it's definitely kicking the timeline further back,
Mm-hmm.
But also with like Flamenco doing his research, that Russian guy, mathematician that did his research and saying that there's like a 400-year gap of like that's been compressed, and into like I don't know, either compressed or like some, I can't remember exactly, but his stuff is interesting too. But it kind of also lends a little bit more credibility to Hitchcock and Randall Carlson's like theory, in a strange way, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
How so?
Hancock's.
How so?
Yeah.
Because I think with Randall Carlson and Hitchcock, Hancock, sorry. Yeah. Hancock, they had like theirs led them back to where the time, like there was a 300-year kind of like missing part, right? I think it was like they led it back to like 10,800 years. And if you add the flamenco timeline compressed together, it kind of adds on those 300 years in like a perfect kind of like sync,
Okay.
So, or I can't remember which way it is, but it's interesting that like that could be a missing link right there. The compression of that timeline, which would have been right around like the Enlightened Age, because they had the Dark Ages and the Enlightened Age, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of the whole kind of like lack of a better term, the marketing of the new world and the old world, I think it's just a little tactic of just like saying Enlightened Age and Dark Age, because I do have a strong belief like that, like like if the Earth is heating up, it's like it's heating up for like longer grow periods, and it's not necessarily catastrophe in my opinion. More fresh water. It's heating up for longer grow periods, which means that like society, like if you have more food grow periods and more production of like food, there's more prosperity, which like
more carbon dioxide for more plants. I mean,
yes, exactly. And then, and people always kind of like discount the fact that like if it freezes though, we all die, because like I always go.
I don't feel like, it feels more like that lately.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
We're worried about it getting colder.
Yeah.
Because
we had like 80-mile-an-hour winds in Oakland the other day.
Wow.
Yeah, it was wild.
Windy. Do you have damage?
No, we didn't get anything here, but I mean, trees fell down.
Oh, trees
all
are
over the place. Yeah. It's insanity. Roads are falling down, mudslides everywhere.
The storm surge is like crazy. I've never seen the storm surge like it's been lately.
Me neither. The ground is so wet and saturated, it just fucking floods. It's fucked. It's gonna be it's gonna be a crazy year.
Yeah. It's already kind of humid too. I don't know if you've caught that. Like when the sun comes out, it's humid. I'm like, what is going on? It's like a swamp out here.
Fuck, I had to put on a hat today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, San Francisco.
Yeah, it definitely feels like things are heating up and getting a little crazier by the day.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I want to, because the weather modifications, I think, is absolutely happening. They're modifying it with like chemtrails, but also HARP, and also just regular, because they've had weather modification for like 200 years now. With that one ionizer that you can point up into
the sky. Those old painting or pictures of diagrams of like sound cannons going up in black clouds. Yeah.
So I mean, they're perfecting it, right? Like let's go drought for 10 years and put the stress on the thing. But the worst part about it is like the wet, like we were talking about this, they've missed the planting season in California by like 2 months, and that kind of spells a lot of disaster, like in itself.
Because of the rain.
Yeah. Oh. And especially here on the Central Coast. I mean, like with the winds, if they've just missed it, nothing. You could have too much water in your. The only thing you can grow is rice, right?
Right. Cranberries.
Yeah.
Have you seen Lake Tulare?
Let
me look it up.
And you guys just went through a huge drought, right? Like,
how many goddamn years?
Yeah, I mean, like, but yeah,
Lake
that's
Tulare
something in itself.
Came back. It's the first time since like 1984 or something.
That it's full.
Well, yeah, that it's even had water.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm trying to look it up
Huh.
right now.
Yeah.
So it was already dried up, and they just probably gave up on it a while
Yeah.
ago, and now it's a lake again.
Well, it's so it was one of the, I think it was the largest freshwater. I was trying to look. I can't see you guys. I'm gonna go back to you guys. I think it was the largest freshwater lake in California, if not like most of the United States. And the late 1800s, they just fucking siphoned it off, and it dried up. And I think this is maybe the third or fourth time the water's come back there.
No way.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, let me try and see if I could pull it up. I was watching some news shit about it.
And people were getting like 12 feet of snow or something, or is that an exaggeration?
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
I think that was in San Diego.
Really?
Yeah, like San Diego, like like they have the hills right out of San Diego. Those got like 6 feet, and then like yeah. I mean, it's just, I mean, it stayed snowed here on the mountains here, right next to the coast for like like two solid weeks, which was wild.
Huh. Oh yeah, that's the thing here. Let me I'll pull this up so you guys can see it too.
Okay.
Let's see. Because there was some interesting stuff. So yeah, once the largest freshwater lake west of the Great Lakes in 1849. So one of the things now about it overflowing is like people have built in that basin and shit.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, so it's just totally flooded out. There's like some people who built on an old island, luckily, I guess.
Oh.
And
And they didn't close the feedback loop, and now it's like coming back, huh?
Okay, so okay, the lake occasionally reappears during floods, as it did in 87, 97. Now it says 2023. Look at that.
Wow.
I think it happened in the 20s.
Wow, look at that.
It's massive.
Yeah. Let's see if they have a big map of it. So I think.
Where is it on your map there?
Well, now it's not saying on here. It's like in this area.
Okay.
The grapevine.
Yeah. But it also makes you, I mean, look at this whole Central Valley basin.
Oh yeah.
I possibly this was a huge fucking lake.
Well,
maybe that was it.
That might have made it feel like a part of California was an island there.
Oh yeah,
for sure. For sure. I wish I could find that. Fucking.
It does look like a sea, like a sea basin.
Yeah.
Aren't you glad we have Google Earth now?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
I mean, for all its damnable qualities.
Yeah,
it's pretty handy.
Yeah. Let's
it's really cool. Yeah.
We don't need to go. We don't need to go look at that shit.
Yeah. But as far as like the current, like, I didn't hear what you guys said about what if like, but trades and skills, I joke about it all the time, like about like, and we were talking about last time, Casey was like, like no one ever expects you to get a skill and charge right for it. You know what I mean? Charge they don't expect you to just get like a skill that's like, higher education will be like, oh, you need to be higher education, but you can be educated without skills at the end of the day. You know what I mean? So like a skill, like say building pyramids would be high tech at the time, right? So,
well, most educated people, highly educated people, don't have a lot of skills,
right?
But it's this idea too of like theory and practice, right? You like there's a lot of theoretical stuff going on, and not a lot of like practical education or application. But that's like my mother was a vocational a VOTEC teacher.
Okay,
but she taught math. Right. So she'd bring the shop teachers into the classroom.
Right.
and bring your your speed square in if you want to learn fractions,
Right.
that kind of thing. So that was her approach to doing the academic side, was to make it immediately applicable for her students.
Right.
And the shop teachers loved it because she was just reinforcing what they were trying to get across.
Of course.
Yeah, in the shop.
Yeah. Well, look, what was I like about the education system has been like kind of dumbed down, right? Because the equivalency test for like being a freshman in high school is now like the test for graduating like Harvard, like for your, like, you know what I mean? Like the same kind of like common sense stuff, writing and skills and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's wild, right?
I think college is like post high school now.
It's a business, man. Like some of these places, their endowment is larger than it's like one of them is like the third largest in the whole world endowment, like as far as like GDP almost.
Well, they have all these beautiful old world buildings that they have to keep up,
right? And they got to dedicate them to whoever has like that fucking checkbook.
For real, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and the NCAA is completely untouchable of like anything, that just says it all too,
Yeah.
They can do whatever.
I know. I mean, they got you in that amateur like category,
Yeah, that's talk about a scam in plain sight,
Yeah.
It's like everyone's getting paid except the athletes.
Yeah, they're swimming like Scrooge McDuck in his gold, like you're out there like blowing out your knee,
Oh, they can't even get a free pair of shoes.
I know.
So come on, I can get a free pair of shoes.
Yeah.
I'm still paying off my student loans from 30 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, $150 a month.
Wild, man.
So I die. I don't know. It doesn't go away.
Well, at least you're a rare one who went to a school that you're still doing or whatever,
Yeah, I'm still like, right. I'm applying what I learned and all that.
Yeah, I mean, most people go to school, have some shitty career for half their life, and then have a midlife crisis. I think the midlife crisis didn't even start until they started making people fucking, come up with careers for themselves when they're fucking 17 years old. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm pretty sure I've had midlife crises, but at least I'm doing what I love and learned about in school.
No,
I also took 3 years of architecture drawing and mechanical drawing and then also woodshop in high school. So, that's basically what I'm still working with.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say that's a pretty rare case. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's rad.
Yeah. And again, it's like I mentioned my mom being a VOTEC teacher, and that's that theory practice, dialectic has always been with me, just going back. And even like when, in 2008, kind of feels a little bit like that right now, like not getting as many contracts because the economy is doing a nosedive. And 2008, that was the last time I worked for an architect for some other architect. And, and so that office closed for a time when everything crashed. And I just went back to driving around with a pickup truck or van at that time and tools. And, and then at some point there was a builder who saw what I was doing. He's like, why are you competing with contractors? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, you have an architecture background. Why don't you do the design build thing?
Right.
And put it together. And it took me a couple of years of like just going back to remodels, because I couldn't get any more architecture work. And so it was like 2010, 2011, I started doing this design build bit. And that's why my business now is Dream Design Build. It all kind of came out of that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's the thing about having a skill though. It's like, you're only as like being laid off like in 2008 or something like that. You just went right back to your skill. Like it was like no big thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. Instead of like going home on Friday and like hanging it up and like not worrying about it till Monday, it's just like that's like the real only difference, right? Is like, you're like, oh dang, I have to go take a meeting at like 9:00 on a Sunday or whatever. I mean, you're like,
You
okay,
just do what you have to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
and have children develop skills and have
Right,
something to fall back on.
yeah,
But I mean, imagine like, all these tech companies are laying off tens of thousands of people.
Yeah, and what do they do?
Exactly. These, I've seen it in the Bay Area.
Right.
Guys in their Teslas, the fucking,
yeah,
all these fancy bars all of a sudden that are opening up. All these guys have disposable money. They're paying freaking $5,000-$10,000 rent a month.
yeah.
And now they're laid off and no one's hiring in that world. And not
Yeah. And who's gonna buy the $28 4-pack of beer now from like the beer garden, dude? I'm just like, geez, Louise, dude. I'm like, that's $28 for 4 beers, and they're like, oh yeah, but it has the hops I like, babe. You're like, well, get out of here, dude.
This is the Imperial IPA.
Yeah. This one's infused with lemon. You're like, dude, I have lemons on my way down here. I can just give to you for your Pabst Blue Ribbon. Same flavor, man.
I
can't drink really hoppy beer anymore, man.
I can't do it, dude. Never liked it, man. I like that old German beer where just
the Hefeweizen.
Yeah.
The Germans and the Mexicans took it from the Germans.
Oh yeah, dude. The Zimmerman message, man.
More.
I got this theory that like during World War II, like all those breweries that like all those places around the Pacific Rim that Germany wanted to be part of their Axis. They're like all you've heard of the Zimmerman message, right? No, you haven't?
I don't know.
Okay, so before World War II broke out, like Germany went around the world and like was like all trying to get allies to like battle against the USA, like they're like, oh, we'll just go to Mexico. And Mexico's like, oh, that's cool. Sure. What are you gonna give us? And dude, at the time, German beer makers that was like something that was like, hey, here's our secrets, here's our recipes. No one had them, right?
Oh.
And so and you can see it kind of connected to the 1893 World's Fair because one of the guys there was rich enough to sponsor that, right? It was like he sponsored the beer, and they sold Anheuser-Busch, and they moved it to St. Louis, Missouri. But so they had it was like the recipe for like sourdough. No one knew it, but they're like, oh, how can you do it? So like so they went to Mexico and Japan. If you notice, Japan has great freaking beer. Thailand has great beer. Mexico has beer, and they all kind of taste similar. And I think it was just like, we'll give you the recipe. Can you consider coming on board? Just doing it. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. Like they gave these guys, and there's breweries all around those places. Like, so that was like my theory about like the Zimmerman message was like them going, hey, here's this secret recipe if you're going to come on board. And they're like, everyone's like, yeah, cool. And they made beer and they got drunk and forgot about it. And they're like, oh, we got this recipe. It's good. It's good.
I can see that happening actually.
Oh yeah. I mean, I can totally see it happening.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Irish just kept it to themselves and over here on our own private island.
I think because Irish beer is so much different than German beer though.
Yeah.
Right. It's more like an espresso, like it's roasted. It's not cold brewed. It's like, I don't know. I mean, German or Irish beer is good in itself too. Irish beer is good warm. German beer
drink it straight.
Yeah.
I don't know.
A Guinness warm is like how they serve it over there.
Yeah,
have you heard the stories about the?
I've never actually had a warm Guinness in Ireland. Let's say.
Yeah.
I don't think I did either.
Yeah.
But there's the stories about the giant vats over there at the main Guinness spot.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, it's probably, I guess it's maybe 10 years ago now. It's in recent history. It could be maybe 20, but so they drained the vats, their huge main factory vats. And there was like fucking dozens of rats, just dead rats and all of them.
Whoa.
Oh man.
In the vats, and so they crawled in, drowned, freaking like dozens and dozens, and all of them.
That doesn't surprise me,
right? And so they cleaned them out as you would normally would, and English people and Irish people will tell you that fucking Guinness is not fucking the same. Has not been the same since, and it's not as good.
Pulled the rats out of the vat.
Yeah. So, yeah, they'll say that, dude. I've heard them say that.
Rat bone marrow.
Yeah, something in the rats.
Yeah.
I'm actually
Wow.
going to be in Ireland in a couple of weeks here. I'm going to
awesome.
spend some time in Galway. Yeah,
Nice.
my
Awesome,
dad
dude.
and my sister lives there. She has a restaurant, her and her Guatemalan husband. So I'll be kicking it with them.
Amazing. I love Ireland.
I might do some reporting from Dublin.
Do
Hell
it. Oh man, it's amazing. You're gonna freaking freak out. It's just old world to the bone for sure.
Yeah.
Are you close to Dublin then?
No, well,
Is that close?
my sister lives in Galway, which is, sort of like the San Francisco to Dublin's New York.
Okay. Nice,
like
nice.
that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But it's only
Dublin's
2.5 hours by train or bus to get from one to the other. So yeah,
so you could drive around that whole country in probably 6 hours.
I mean, you can, but the roads, like when you get off the main arteries, like the roads are crazy and narrow, and people go zipping around them. It's really a trip. But then you meander. You're just meandering. So, distances are sort of, you just have a different sense of distance.
For sure.
You could spend a lifetime just exploring the nooks and crannies and crags.
For sure. Have you been up to Northern Ireland?
I've been to Belfast, and I've been to Derry.
I love
that was
Belfast.
Back in 1999. Yeah, that was a while ago. I have a tattoo from Belfast.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that's one of my favorite cities, actually.
It's a really cool place. In 1999, there's still a lot of tension there.
Right. There's still kind of tension. I think there'll always be kind of tension there.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
That's an interesting place. Belfast is a trip, and I've always kind of felt like this should be a film, but like the punk scene in Belfast was the only place, it was the only sanctuary ever, like within the Troubles, like you could be a fucking a lefty or righty, whatever, red or blue in the punk scene. It didn't matter. That was like the only place
really
where there was a truce. Yeah, it's really interesting. This dude Colin, he did a band called Running Riot. He kind of just united the scene, and
wow.
He was more on the he wasn't a fucking Republic dude or whatever. He's more on the English side of it.
Mm-hmm.
But like the scene was just united. It was just cool. No one cared. It was literally the only place there wasn't, the shit wasn't going on. And it's a trip no one's ever like.
That'd be a great movie.
Talking about. Yeah,
that'd be such a fantastic.
Yeah, I was told that by my buddies who live out there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
When I went from Belfast up to Derry, I was nervous just like getting on the train because, I heard that people are going to know your politics just by how you answer the question, where are you headed? Because if you say Londonderry, then you're
right,
at least allied with Protestantism. If you say Derry, you're planting your tricolor flag, and you better be careful who you say that to. And I just, so I had a guy like, I'm on the train platform, and he said, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "Fuck it, Derry." And he goes, "Come here, sit with me." I spent the whole train ride with him, and he just told me all the stories about, how life in Derry, and it was great, but it was just kind of flip of the coin.
Yeah, no, totally. You never quite know how, if they have blue on, then they might be on the Protestant side. If they have red, they might be on the Catholic side.
Could be.
Yeah. In Scotland and Glasgow, there's Glasgow Rangers, the soccer teams, and they're the Protestant team. They're blue. And there's Celtic, and they're the Catholic team. And I have a bunch of friends out there, and like, they grew up with people who supported Rangers. They're the Protestants. They killed the lawns in their yard. They would not let anything green grow in their garden or their yard.
Now you're taking it too far.
Yeah, totally.
Kill my grass.
Talk about a fucking crazy reality to live in.
Well, at least we're not doing that over here.
Yeah, totally. Big time.
So, hey, Casey, you mentioned you had a a story about concrete.
Yeah, well, so I was doing a job and came across this statue. It was a statue of Diana, and she's like pulling the fucking bow and arrow.
Okay.
And I've figured out it was a statue that was in the 1915 World Fair, and so they moved it to this freaking place. And I was talking to contractor, and he was saying they had to do some repairs on it in the last handful of years, and they had these guys come out and work out on it. And when they cut it open and shit, it was made like they had no idea how it was made at all. Like it was completely foreign. They had no idea. They never seen it before.
Like the materials, or like
just how it was, what it was made out of. Mm-hmm. Like it was a really weird concrete, and there's weird like rebar going through it in strange ways. Yeah, it was a trip. Like they had no idea. And I was just sitting there listening to him say, I was like, wow, that was a trip. I've wondered what it was they had made it out of, or how they made it, but clearly it was made a different way than how we.
Yeah. How big was it?
At least now, it's like life size.
Oh shit! Okay.
Yeah, it's a big one.
I mean, we talked about the different types of concrete, right? Like the old
like the Portland cement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we discussed that, like how the old, the old cement was, American rock cement, they call it, right? Yeah. But that's a catch-all because there's a lot of different mines all over the place. Like I went to the mine in the Catskills, the Roslyn. I have the brochure for it, like right over here somewhere. But I think the Rosendale mine. And so where they're just pulling out the rocks that are made out of silica and calcium.
Right.
And it's like more like the Roman cement, right? It hardens over time, and it's got like a plasticity to it, and it's got all these incredible properties. And like you imagine if it's got silica in it and you put under compression, and maybe it even has like piezoelectric properties. But it's like self-repairing and hardens water, and like all these like incredible. So I mean, it could have been if it was, and also they know. I mean, you can do a forensic study of all these old world buildings and like kind of figure out which ones really are old world just by looking at the mortar. Like if you analyze the mortar and it's Portland cement, it would have been like the late 1800s forward. Because they introduced Portland cement then, but then there's hundreds and hundreds, and there's websites online that actually had this book on my pile here, the American Cement.
Yeah. Nice.
This before Uriah Cummings, and this is from like 1898, I think. And he was chronicling the whole American cement industry, and he goes into like great detail in this book about the difference. He's advocating for the old. Like, why aren't we firing up these old mines? Like, we have all of this material, and it's far superior, and it's immediately accessible, and we don't have to bring it from, we don't have to import it. And he's got this list in here, and it's like pages and pages long. It's reproduced on a web page, just as a list. But it's all the different based on the different mines: Milwaukee, Wisconsin cement, Louisville, Kentucky cement, Rosendale. That's the one I went to, the Rosendale cement mine. And it's just buildings: Masonic Temple, Lyceum Building in Duluth, Minnesota, Union Depot, Chicago. Just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of buildings at that time. And he starts out saying this is a very incomplete list. But it's it's his best effort to put all this together. And all of these buildings were made with this kind of cement, which, again, to me, like this is the key to the past. Like,
so you said that cement has more calcium deposit than
it's basically silica and calcium.
Right. What's funny is that the Rio Grande, the one way that they can trace back the Rio Grande is because of the calcium deposits are like more than normal like deposits there, and it pushes it down into that basin. That was one way that they could date the Rio Grande, is that like it was from the calcium deposits of like, I guess, edging its way through like the Rockies. It says it's higher in calcium than anywhere else. That's how they know about dating it there. That was something they did in the 70s. It's kind of funny that I'm like, when I was researching that part about it, I was like, dang, dude, like that's kind of a crazy thing to like add into like your guys' research, is like the amount of calcium deposits. I'm not quite sure about the silica, but the calcium deposits are like greater than anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that'd be really interesting to look into.
Yeah. The Rio Grande has a strange history for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't show up on other like early maps, like that California island map.
Right back. Hold on.
It doesn't show up on that map at all.
Oh no. Why?
I don't know. I mean, because also the Colorado River also has a strange history, of course, but like the Colorado River is believed to have like first emptied in the Monterey Bay right here in Santa Cruz, and in the Monterey Bay Canyon. It's supposed to be the deepest. And have you ever like looked at that canyon at all?
Not so much.
Like Google Earth, you can see it. It's like shaped just like the Grand Canyon.
Yeah,
like that.
Lichtenberg type figures, fractal rivulets and stuff.
It's kind of like they say that it was the original mouth of the Colorado River, the Monterey Bay.
Oh,
was but the date's like 3 million years ago. It's one of those things. Yeah,
because geologic time and
So, but I believe it was. But I'm like convinced that it was a lot later. Like, it wasn't 3 million. It was like
more recent,
maybe like 30,000 years ago.
Right. So the catastrophist models allow for more recent time frames, right? That geologists want to say everything happened over millions and this slow drip thing, right? Where if like, so Randall Carlson, he's a catastrophist, but he believes in this sort of like, I guess, mechanical processes where like, okay, there's an asteroid or something, and that can explain the amount of heat that would have been required to melt two miles of ice and have this rapid giant flood, and then and that could explain the carving out of these canyons and so forth, and then you have the Velikovsky.
Oh, something happened to your sound. Can you hear me?
Lost you.
You're back. You're back.
Okay. Yeah. So then there's this electric universe idea where it's, the thunderbolts of the gods, and like if Earth and Mars or the planets, got too close to each other, then they would be, plasma discharge.
Right.
Like grabbing a doorknob, and you get that electric shock on a massive scale that could have carved out canyons, and that matches like what you see in welding. And they do these experiments where they're like doing plasma discharges into sand and filming it, and it just looks exactly like carving canyons.
Right.
Yeah, that shit's super interesting.
Well, so what's even more interesting is that, again, that in the desert, the Mojave Desert, like rocks move like at nighttime by like you guys know. They move at nighttime. They just there's a lot of wild stuff.
Explain.
I don't know. Pull it up, like rocks moving in the Mojave Desert. It's kind of a crazy. They move slow, but since they're being moved through sand, you can see the trail, and that's how they know they're moving. It's kind of, I always like really like. There you go. See, look at that.
They solved it.
Oh, they did? Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Oh, it's on Vice too, right? So we know they. New York Post.
New York Post, bro.
been
Don't confuse Vice with New York Post.
Snopes approved.
Let's see what it says.
Yeah, I mean, So yeah, the like
They're
you know,
just,
there's
bro, they're just being blown by the wind. Come on,
Blown by
Pat.
the wind.
is that what they say?
Yeah, it is.
All right, fantastic.
Wait,
But
I think so.
you know
Oh no. Sorry, I take that back.
what?
Sorry.
Sailing rocks.
Yeah, they were. That was them talking about it. It looks like there might be ice sheets that form
Right,
after overnight rains, and
and
they float on the ice sheet.
that makes a lot more sense.
That's interesting.
I think it'd probably be some electromagnetic thing.
Yeah,
I think so too.
yeah.
You know?
I mean, yeah. Why? I mean, yeah.
Where-
When do we see rocks move like that?
Yeah, I mean, have they been tested for some kind of like, you know, radiation type quality or some
Yeah.
kind of magnetic?
Yeah.
You would have had to test them for magnetism, right?
But those how big did they say the rocks are? Because those they look like they might be like 30, 40 pounds or something like that, right?
This article isn't getting that detailed.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But
A
it's
2-man rock or a 1-man rock?
yeah. I mean, if those are just moving by themselves, just like that, they, you know, come on. I mean, there's got to be like, in my opinion, magnetism, but also brought on by like the electrical charge of like whatever was once there, you know,
For sure.
Maybe it's still electrical.
like it's grounded and like that rock is grounding itself, you know.
I like the one that zigzags.
Oh, that's cool. I saw that too.
Yeah, where is that?
Right there. Over here.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Upright. Doesn't know where to go.
Yeah.
It's a drunken sailing rock.
Oh yeah, I can relate.
Yeah, but that's wild to me, you know.
Yeah, it's trippy.
And then, you know,
And they just even so, where was that?
Actually, if you go back to that one, there's another rock that it crosses paths with. Did you see that?
No, let's see it. Even just the fact that they're just figuring it out.
In there's like another one. There's another little one. It would have been like a squirrel in traffic, like, and that's the car it was avoiding.
Right. I dodged it. Maybe this is how they made the
ley lines.
Yeah, the petroglyphs in Peru or whatever. Nazca.
No, I mean that definitely like bounced around in my mind, right? You know, looking at it, going, you know.
Well, maybe they knew what was causing these rocks to move, and they could harness it. Maybe they could just move them.
Yes.
Maybe gods, that's your sketch, and there's just angels like turning knobs somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That is a giant etch-a-sketch.
Well, like I remember as far as the electrical universe thing, where Jupiter and Venus or Jupiter and Saturn had switched places at one point.
Yeah, they've got all these ideas about how, and I don't have it all like dialed in, and I'm sure there's competing notions, but just the general idea that the planets, that we don't have a stable like clockwork solar system like the Newtonian model, that it's an unstable system and planets have shifted over the year.
What was I going to say? Is Narubu that dark planet or something like that? That doesn't basically go in a circle around the sun, but they say it like goes in like this weird kind of pattern, and it
way out in orbit.
And then comes back in, but it always comes back in there. Like because I was thinking about like, you know, if gravity is so strange like that, even in a system that's like stable as the universe, like what if that black energy did get pretty close to the Earth and it kind of changed like what like rocks weighed at a moment, you know what I mean? Like how things could like just weigh different, you know, like you can pick up like a big lava rock that's light, you know, you've heard that where lava rock floats on water because it's buoyant enough. Yeah. You know, that like something like that could change everything, you know, could change everything.
I mean, gravity isn't a constant anywhere, right? It's
I know.
Stable for periods of time, but they, you know, the idea that dinosaurs in today's gravity would never be able to stand up. They would just by their own mass.
Yeah. Or that, you know, we were talking about like, you know, the magnetic pole north could just be the planet Narubo off in the middle of going, and then when it comes back in its orbit the other way, it pulls the magnetic. But during that weird time, like stuff like happens where, you know, you can lift like rocks, or there's energy being like, you know, you can
That's when
harness
they built all the pyramids, when Narubi
Exactly.
lapping
exactly.
quick.
You know, but that's a far out there thought. But like, you know, like if you're gonna tell me that there's like this thing that no one knows about, but you guys talk about it, then I'm gonna like actually like think about it and imagine it at the exact same time. You know what I mean? I'm gonna get pretty science fiction about it as well. You know, so I always just go, well, maybe that makes sense. You know?
Right. They just
No,
were
they're
like,
fun to think about. I mean,
Yeah.
is there? And then can you actually predict those periods of those cycles where gravity would be different? So it's like, yeah, man, quick, get the Stonehenges together, you know, because
Well,
we're entering
I mean,
into a lighter period.
well, yeah, I think they could. That's why the Mayan calendar is more accurate now. You know, it's like, I think, you know, 25,000 years of accuracy. I think they could predict that kind of stuff.
Oh,
You know,
I mean, they could predict the stars,
I mean,
you know, and the equinoxes.
they could predict.
rising up
They could
through
predict
these
like
windows.
what are those things? Eclipses and moon eclipses and all that kind of crazy stuff. 25,000 years ago.
you guys know that whole like Antikythera mechanism, right?
What's that?
The Antikythera mechanism. You've heard of that, right?
I'm not sure what
Yeah.
that is.
Oh, cool. Look up Antikythera mechanism.
Or do you want to pull it up, or?
Oh, okay, I'll do it. This is
Right.
the trip, man. They found this thing. It's
And
I think Antikythera. You can do it. Antikythera, and it's
Sound it out, Casey. Sound it out.
and
spell it like you're Greek with K's.
Backwards R. Backwards R.
It's a 2,000-year-old gearbox that does everything you guys just said about predicting eclipses, and
Right.
it's 2,000 years old, and it's got like I don't know how many gears.
Oh, the
like,
old computer thing.
yeah,
Thing?
yeah.
Okay.
They call it a computer, but it's mechanical. But it's like way more sophisticated than anyone thought that the Greeks were, or the technology was 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So they call it
right. You know,
out of time, out of place, but maybe it's just the one that survived. I mean, maybe it's like,
Right.
you know, was it like only the most wealthy person with the access to the highest technology had one of these, or was it like was it like an iPhone? Like everybody had them, just rusted away.
Totally. I mean, they definitely wouldn't tell us if everyone had them, but it makes you. I mean, of course, like why would just
they found this in the ocean, huh?
Yeah.
They found this in the ocean. Yeah.
There's videos where they did reproductions of this. You can look up pictures of or whole videos of like the reproductions as close as they could get it, because they scanned, you know, they did the digital scan of this and figured out all the gear. The gear works. Like if you go to that video, I don't know if we can play a video, but like the bottom middle, or just look at the pictures. It's just so cool, man. There's so much going on.
Let me find it.
Right. Look at that.
Big one here.
And then the reproduction is also predicts things.
Well, that looks like this has got like a wooden frame to it. I don't know. There's ones. Yeah. Well, the reproductions, it seems like they've gotten it pretty close. And imagine they're functioning. Computer. I don't quite understand how it's a computer in that it's got computational ability, but it's a mechanical device. So,
Wow, that's wild, man.
Yeah. How does it work? There it is.
We got some fucking.
Oh, the moon phases. Wow. And then I know that John Levy did something on that clock in Denmark or something that has that one clock that spins around with different planets on it.
I was just gonna say, yeah, and that's the Prague.
Oh, in Prague.
I'm gonna go visit that too while I'm doing my Ireland. I'm gonna take a side trip from Dublin.
Oh, rad, man. Oh, look at that. There it is.
I'm gonna go see
Prague's
that.
awesome.
Yeah.
Oldest clock? Oldest, what is it? Oh, longest running, I think.
And that's
Clock
kind of
in
like,
the
First
world.
installed in 1410, they say.
wow. So minus 1,000 years, maybe?
Yeah, yeah. Who
Prague's
knows?
wild. Prague's awesome. I haven't been back since I've gotten into this kind of fucking research, but I mean, there's so much old world there. It wasn't blasted by the fucking
That's what I
Germans
was
or
told.
anyone. Yeah.
That's what I was told. It's the only city that didn't get destroyed during the World Wars. Part one,
And
part two.
they have this
Look at that, dude.
epic cathedral there.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll be there for better part of a week, and I
Awesome.
still looking forward to it, man.
Can't wait to see the pics.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll try to put something together.
Look at
this
those.
place is epic.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got it all.
No.
It's got the tech. There's that bridge with the statues too. That's always in the movies. Can't remember the name.
It's got some really weird public art too, like modern public
totally.
art. It's like really distorted and dystopian and disturbing public art, which I find to be very interesting. That that in the one place where it's still intact, that they would put this really jarring imagery around. Just yeah.
If this is pretty close to Prague, it's this crazy old bone church.
Oh wow. Oh, that's super creepy.
Yeah, dude.
Holy crow.
I mean, yeah, fucking.
I think I'll stay out of there.
Yeah. Are these Tartarians right here? Or whoever. Yeah, whoever it was.
You have to get a cleansing.
I mean, it's like, I mean, only a sicko is going to fucking decorate a church and fucking human bones. I mean, dude, this chandelier.
40,000 human bones. Where'd they get them? Are these just like from wars and stuff, or bone collectors?
I think this story is probably like some plague related story. Like,
is that where they have the underground stuff there too?
I'm not sure if there is underground stuff here. Kutnahora is the name. I don't think there's catacombs here, but I mean, fuck. Actually, there probably is catacombs here.
That's wild.
Yeah, this place is a trip.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not good vibes there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what was this clock saying it does again? So it knows the sun and the moon. I mean, it's like, fucking, they can predict all this stuff, but they can do all these other things. I mean, it's just nonsense.
Wasn't John Levy telling like this crazy story about the guy that created it, and it was so perfect that they went and like gouged his eyes out or something, that he said he'd make another one?
Like the prince or something of the town or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know, like the clockmaker, the guy with his eyes out, or I don't know what the story is. So he threw himself into the clockworks to curse it forever, and I don't know. There's always some thing, like some dark underpinning.
That sounds amazing.
These bones are in the bone church chandelier.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, he's a headpiece.
But yeah, man, just to consider, like, I mean, if that Antikythera mechanism goes back 2,000 years, like, what kind of sophisticated knowledge and technology did they have, and how far back does all of this go?
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think Randall Carlson and Grant Hancock and them, I mean, they're nailing it in the sense of, yeah, there was these civilizations, you know?
Right. Yeah.
I just feel like they're just stuck in the narrative, you know, like they're trying to explain it within the current narrative. And, you know,
I think there's an extent where they really want validation or, you know, from their peers in academia or in,
right.
you know,
There's that for sure.
Yeah. I think they really want to convince the, you know, the institutions that didn't let them in or even mock them,
right.
you know, that's
totally.
right. So there's a little bit of like that sort of, like Graham Hancock does seem like he has a chip on his shoulder.
For sure. I mean, and he's awesome. I mean, really, like I when I first heard him fucking years and years ago, even just opening my mind, it's like, you know, you're just like, oh yeah, fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. Okay, I'm not the only one who thinks this shit's fucked. Yeah. It's like, fuck yeah. And he's great. He gets boots on the ground. You know, his wife has to be one of the coolest fucking women in the world because he's dragging her around everywhere, scuba diving with them, taking photos, you know?
I mean, that's also adventure. I mean, the ladies like adventure.
It's awesome. It's just a shame, you know. I wish like you'd talk to him like, hey, imagine fucking if Göbekli Tepe was only 500 years old.
Right.
You know,
well, I'm like,
imagine this scenario and, you know, just to see where their minds can go with that. Cause they do have the resources and stuff clearly to like,
they're back.
Really do some research, but
you know what I mean? His light, I think they're going like the LiDAR stuff of like the Amazon and putting those pieces together, especially with like how, I mean, before he's brought up stuff I've never even heard before, which blows me away. Like the soil and the fertilizer that they made could grow anything. You know what I mean?
That and black soil.
Yeah. And they don't. And that was like super interesting to like. I'm like, well, gosh, you know, like you think with every technology they would be able to break it down and figure that one out because would be fantastic, right? Like
totally.
You know, and then the LiDAR stuff of all these other civilizations through the Amazon. I just think that's interesting.
Do you guys ever look at corn, like the cultivation of corn?
No, but like I know it's crazy amount of like growing and stuff like that, where they take the smallest corns and then they breed the smallest corn seeds together and it becomes a giant corn.
Well, it's more than that. It's like it basically started out as some useless scraggly weed, and then it went through, and I don't know how long, but like generations of cultivation to get it from this useless weed to this edible, you know, staple crop that made the basis of agriculture. But to get it from here to there, it took such a long time and so many generations of cultivation that you had to have had the end goal in mind. You had to have like back engineered, you know, how to get to corn, because all these in between steps were completely useless for consumption or, you know, sustenance or any kind of thing like that. So this project would have, you know, like they would have had to back engineer it and had all that foreknowledge on where they wanted to take this thing before they even started the project, but before they even had agriculture.
Right.
So
it's like kind of like the pyramid thing. It's like
like the oldest, the most
chicken and the egg
one's the oldest. Like it boggles the mind.
Yeah. Now it's in everything. Hair shampoo to like candy bars, man.
Well, I mean, if you think plants have consciousness, I mean, that's one thing that's worth like sort of meditating on, because like marijuana is a very powerful medicine plant, but it has on its own consciousness and it sure knows how to get itself, you know, replicated and disseminated amongst, you know, in the human psyche.
Right. Like what do they have like receptors in the human gene for hemp?
And maybe, and then there's some, and in corn too, it's like it's got itself in every product,
right?
And it's in every field across the land. It's like beat out the oaks.
Totally.
They did that with wheat too. I know that they have in China, I think wheat like stopped them from starving. You know, I can't remember there was this guy, a scientist that created how to cultivate wheat. You know, that's what the funny thing is about Monsanto, though, right? Because Monsanto does all that stuff, and with the corn now too, right?
I don't think we call it Monsanto any longer. I think it's
Oh.
Bayer or
Oh,
something.
well, okay.
Yeah, which is like a mile
Yeah.
from my house,
Oh,
there in
yeah.
Emeryville. Yeah, I drive by it all the time. Like, I'm always all fuck you.
Well, also there's the original apple all comes from like one tree that produced an apple, though, right? And like where the apple was
know that.
first like cultivated, it was right in like Turkey, and that's where a lot of strange like stuff is the first place for you
Turkey.
know, Turkey.
Because that's where Göbekli Tepe is too, isn't it?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like in order to get like apples to grow on a tree, you have to graft them, and then everything comes off that one graft. So the tech, like doing that with the apple, you know.
So do they trace apples back to like one variety? In a particular
yeah, sorta. But I can't remember. It was the research I did was like a while back, and like because there's a strain of apple that I think is the best flavor. You know, it's called the California Golden Crisp, and it has like a brown thing on the top of it, and that's how you can tell it's a Golden Crisp when you hit it, and it sounds kind of like hollow. You know, and I'm like, oh wow, I wonder about that apple, and then I realized that they'll get like a tree, and in different parts of that tree, the apple tastes different. It looks different. So if you take the branch off that tree and you put it like the flavor that you like onto another apple tree, then it'll grow just that particular apple into a California Golden Crisp, right? But then the climate might not be that good, and then so you might have Granny Smiths that grow really good somewhere, and Fiji's grow somewhere really good somewhere, you know, and I don't know. So doing the research, I'm like, where was the first apple? And it turns out it's like somewhere in like Turkey or Kazakhstan, something strange. Like
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It's Kazakhstan.
Oh yeah,
the mountains of Kazakhstan.
Yeah, which is like, you know,
yeah, it's on the Silk Road there.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I've had there's an apple tree in my backyard, and when I moved in here, the apples weren't good. They were just really bitter. They had no flavor. But like pretty much in the last few years, they've become delicious.
Yeah, like one branch will take over, and then it'll, like if you know how to graft it, you can make all those apples off that thing, and it's like whatever. I mean, I think the Chinese people did it with pears and apples, or Koreans did it with pears and apples, and then you have that like pear apple. Yeah, so you can do it like it's a wild experiment out there, but you can do it. Like plums are the same way. Plums are all different, like the small ones, and
there's all kinds of different fucking plums.
Yeah, I mean, that's all that old world knowledge that we've got, you know.
Yeah, like a farmer's almanac and know where to plant that stuff, right? Like ash for roses, like the different contents of like ground for roses can change the color, you know, and they did the same thing with roses.
Like Benjamin Franklin's project, like the farmer's almanac.
Oh yeah. It did. Like the farmer's almanac is like really cool to look at sometimes, you know?
No, it is. It's awesome. And, you know, Ben Franklin's known for the electricity shit. And you start thinking about electroculture, and which they used to do, which is basically just running copper wires through your plants. You grow monsters and people have been doing like and actually one of Zertis's recent ones, they talk a lot about electroculture.
And Ken Wheeler did the thing on that too. You know, Ken Wheeler's podcast.
I don't think so.
He had
I'll look at it.
Yegi antennas. You know, just awesome. Basically TV antennas and like hooking a copper wire up, like you said, to the center. If there's three of them, three masts mast, and then like the crossbars, and then the middle one, that's supposed to be the one that's like the one that's receiving or sending the charge, and and then the copper wire, and then like you said, running it to the roots of the plants. I want to try that in my garden here.
Me too. I've been kicking myself not. I mean, I just even want to try it with the cactuses and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
It
works.
Yeah,
It works 100%.
There's an old tale about like avocado trees and like sticking it at like a train tie that ties down the rail, like in the ground right next to the tree, and it grounds it, and the avocados start to grow because it's not a spaz out for that anymore, and it works. It worked for my neighbors when they're like, we're not getting avocados, and I'm like, I heard this thing. I gave them like throw like nails or whatever you want, get them in there just so the ground around it is like grounded. And then out of nowhere, it started getting these like little teeny avocados, man, like on like a tree as big as like a coat rack. You know, I was like, wow, it works. It works, you know.
So, I mean, it works. If you search electroculture on YouTube,
yeah,
like tons of videos will come up. They're like 10 years old, 12 years old. Like,
yeah,
you know, people have been doing it. It's a trip. Totally suppressed technology.
Oh yeah,
100% suppressed.
Absolutely. Or just, you know, thought of as like woo.
Totally.
Right.
Woo.
Totally. But
Right.
like all those pictures of people holding watermelons that are like fucking this big, or the world's biggest lettuce. It's like,
so that was like
those are all electroculture fucking.
So that was the kind of the thing about like the World's Fair thing that like really like shook me. The architecture, the like the statues, but what like really shook me the most was like they were also introducing like new plants to eat, like bell peppers.
The program, yeah,
dude. Like that, they were like, you know, you're like, what the fuck? And they introduced brand new like stuff that they made, like the horticulture and stuff like that. There was like brand new stuff, which, you know, like in San Francisco, they left that glass thing, which is horticulture building out there, right? I think, right? Out at Golden Gate Park, right?
What's up? It's the botanical garden.
Botanical garden.
Now,
yeah. And it's just like, you know, and then like in San Jose, right next to the Rose Krishna like museum, is like you have that rose garden built by the guy from like the Golden Gate Park, right? So it all like matches up, where that's what really blew me away about like the World's Fairs. They were like introducing like new foods to eat.
I knew things like, I don't know what, like cotton candy and hot dogs and, you know.
Yeah, but I'm just like also like,
I mean, all that stuff I guarantee all that was introduced at a World's Fair.
Oh yeah,
hot dogs, even hamburgers.
Yeah.
I mean, pieces, everything.
And now that
they try, or something, you know.
Yeah, and they're probably going to try to do it with like you know, meat grown in a test tube or whatever. You know what I mean? And that's gonna be real gross for me. I'm not going to want it. You know?
Yeah, no, not going to eat the bugs.
Yeah,
I'm not ready for that.
You know, so
it's not going to happen.
No, I've tried bugs in Mexico and it was gross. It was
chocolate covered crickets or whatever they got down there.
Yeah, spicy ones, chocolate ones.
Nah, dude,
wasn't a fan.
Nah, like that's the thing is like we've talked about like, you know, maybe part like, you know, where they say like how many buffalo did they say roamed the like plains, like at the highest estimate, like 40 to 80 million.
Yeah,
like, you know, where they would burn out an area, but they'd also like poo and make the dirt like fertile so they'd grow back the next year and for the floodlands and stuff like that. And then once
the shape of their hooves, like they have hooves that are like this, where it's like
dig into the ground.
Everything. Yeah, they're aerating it basically, right?
Yeah, and then the dust bowl happens when, you know. So it's to me, I'm like, well, if you have a migrating animal like the buffalo that migrates just through plains areas, and you know the earth right in that area, if you take away water, which they took away, and the buffalo at the exact same time, like you get a desert. Like, no duh, right? You get two major things that are trying to create like the you know, the ground to be like plentiful, you know.
So so you take away the buffalo, and what is the other thing you said?
Water.
Yeah, and on top of that, you get people trapped in a debt cycle.
Yeah.
Farmers are trapped in a debt cycle, right? So they're just taxing the land and not letting it rest and recover.
Right.
So all that, like everything put together.
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, absolutely. And you remove one thing from the ecosystem,
right?
It can be detrimental, you know. You remove the bee, you remove some
The
beetle
wolf,
that pollinates all the
wolf out of
flowers,
there.
take the wolf, take
Yeah.
the buffalo,
The
you
bear.
know, like it's detrimental, like more than they say, you know, like
Yeah.
I mean the
And then the corn
manipulations.
takes over.
Well, I mean,
Totally,
like,
yeah.
well, just think, like,
It's all connected.
Well, just think that you take away the grizzly bear out of California, and you know, you have like salmon and steelhead that used to be able to like walk across the rivers on in the 1900s, but you take away the bear, which brings in like the seals that can be predators, right, in the shallow waters that just love fish, right? You know, and so it's like if you don't have the like grizzly bear, at least they're like scraping one of those seals up every now and again. They're just going to eat all like the fish going out and the ones going back in every single freaking year, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So do you think like all these crazy rains you guys are having, like, you know, the environmentalists, like the whole environmental conversation is like just been funneled into like CO2,
Right.
And then from there, it's like tax credit schemes and shit like this.
Oh,
But like the real, you know, what we're talking about right now is like the real economic catastrophe plus thousands of chemicals that aren't traced and whatever, just polluting the shit out of everything. But do you think like now storms that you're suffering, just like this imbalance, because everybody senses that there is something wonky with the climate, or, you know, things are out of whack. You have these crazy weather systems that we're not used to. I mean, maybe it goes back to just there's been too many apex predators, them been removed, and then like there's just like, you know, butterfly effect and everything, you know, all these systems are just completely out of whack, and this is the sort of like nature reasserting itself, filling lakes, dried lake beds back up, and
its consciousness is kind of like become angry or something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe
nature.
in a sense, we kind of anthropomorphize it and that relate to it, but
no, I mean, like I always revert back to like the George Carlin bit where he's just like, you know, how arrogant can you be? You think you affect the earth. When the earth is done with you, he's gonna shake its back and fling you off like fleas. You know, George Carlin would say that. And that was back, and that was back when, you know, it was like environmental green was first coming on, and you could actually hear people in the background or in the foreground in the audience like booing him, and he's like, "Shut the fuck up. You know, you are so arrogant. You think you're responsible for this? Isn't that typical? You are worthless." You know, it's like he's just the best. You know, it's like, you guys don't know what the hell you're talking about.
There's a hilarious Jim Carrey video that I just saw. It's got to be like, I don't know what, 20 years old. It's In Living Color.
Yeah.
And he does a skit where he's this like tie-dyed environmentalist protester, and he's just like standing around in a park with a sign harassing children.
Right. Yeah.
Like fucking up the atmosphere, and, you know,
right.
It's really funny.
I mean, you know, like it was just like, I think stuff like, say, when I was growing up, there was like a big fear about like the ozone depletion, right?
Remember that? Yeah. From our,
and so it was like aerosols, refrigerants, right? Yeah. I mean, you're gonna blame it on like hairspray, or you're gonna blame it on hairspray, or maybe like whatever, the nuclear bombs you like let off in the Pacific, like, you know, the amount of like 100 per year. You know what I mean? You know, or something, maybe something like, but hairspray. That's it, you know.
Well, that's the thing. It's and then it becomes about this one, you know, shiny object or red herring or whatever it is that they hold in front of us, and then get us all worked up, and, you know, and then they have some kind of protocol at the international level. And George Bush, remember George Bush Sr., that was during his time, I think. And it's like, you know, they claim that they actually solved this problem, you know, and meanwhile, there's thousands of other chemicals that are, you know, just washing into the Mississippi River and down and nobody fucking cares.
I just go like, you know what, like any of you world leaders like should bring up the cyclone of trash in the Pacific and clean it up. That's like something like,
there's a project we can all get behind. And
exactly, right? It's a good faith project.
Yeah.
Right, you know?
Right. I mean, then they'd have to acknowledge that they're actually responsible for it.
It's India and China that, and other third world countries that like
Philippines and Indonesia.
Yeah,
And
I mean, it's just kind of like a public,
yeah,
because they don't have a system where they can get rid of that stuff. And
right.
plastics are horrible, anyways.
And they're producing a lot of it because they're feeding the first world with
plastics with like the chemicals that like ruin testosterone and like and
so that should be producing stuff.
Yeah, so it's just like
what a mess.
The war on testosterone in itself is kind of funny because you're just like, whatever. Just get you guys. Sorry. The last time testosterone got out of control, you put them all on boats and put them in Australia, dude. Like we can figure this out, dude. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying, though? Yeah.
I mean, all through the Bay Area, especially at the port in Oakland and Vallejo, that it's called Mare Island. It's an island. They built the first. Oh yeah, there's a golf course out there. Yeah. They built the first nuclear subs out there. All kinds of stuff. There's so much fucking waste buried in the Bay Area. Like they can't even you can't even dig in certain places because they don't want to disturb the dirt because it's just locked the shit in, like all through the Bay Area. And that's just one example. It's everywhere. I mean, these guys they still do it, like they've been doing it for 150 years, just dumping into the waters, the oceans. It's still our drains in the cities say don't dump in the drains. It goes to the
where'd they bring all that toxic sludge, whatever that they from the train derailment in East Palestine?
Oh, dude, that's
where'd they do with that?
I mean, they set it on fire first off because it was like
they turned it into what is it, mustard gas or something by incinerating it.
Right. Well, by the way, mustard gas isn't even really that hard to make, right? It's ammonia and bleach. You can kill yourself cleaning your bathroom if you mix those two things.
Well, maybe I don't have the term right, but it's the World War I, chemical trench warfare. Like that's what they turned it into by exploding it.
I mean, dude, okay, so yeah. They made a movie about that. What was the movie called? 6 months before that actual thing happened.
Yeah, it was in that. I forget, but
it was a Netflix, and it was called.
Are we talking about it's not the White Noise.
White Noise.
That's the one.
That's it.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. And it's it's total predictive programming, right? Mm-hmm. Exact same thing, exact same place. Yeah.
Well, I guess a bunch of the people who were extras in that movie lived in the city where it was affected from.
Right. I mean,
you can't make this shit up, man. That's
if you did, you'd be called a liar. You'd be called.
I know, but this goes so far away from architecture, of buildings, but more architecture of society, right? And the social engineers. So that's the most screwed up thing I've ever seen them do. I've heard the report is that they want to burn out that area so bad that no one lives there to buy it up on pennies on the dollar so they can turn it into a 15-minute city that will be ruled by the UN and the government, So
I have not heard that.
Now I know.
Want to clear the
Palestine
population out of
Ohio.
there.
Yeah.
They want to get rid of it. Huh.
So
that's Palestine or Ohio?
Palestine, Ohio. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
The theory is wild. The 15-minute cities are a thing. It's not. It's what they talked about at the economic forum. I mean, it's pretty conspiracy, right? Sorta, but it's just a spoiler alert at this time, right?
Totally, it's just a spoiler alert.
Just a spoiler alert.
It's so interesting how it's called Palestine too.
My dog was whining.
Oh shit! What kind of dog you got?
Rhodesian Ridgeback.
Oh hell yeah! Is it red?
Nice.
What's that?
Is it red?
Kind of golden red. Yeah, cool. She's awesome, man.
Nice. Yeah, those 15-minute cities, that's a real thing. So,
I saw it was in English a video of the English farmer, taking the camcorder, cell phone into his chicken coop, ready to walk in chicken coop. He's like, here, you want a 15-minute city? This is what it is.
Right.
You know, we got all the hens here. The door is open. They can leave anytime they want, but they have everything they need right here. They got a bucket of water.
Right.
They got their feed, and they don't complain. And they're, you know, but out there, the world is scary. So they stay right here out of their own free will.
Right.
And then they just produce. And he's like picking up the eggs out of the bins and like putting them in his pocket. He's like, they just produce, and you just take what they produce, and they don't complain, and they don't even know you're doing it. It's like, this is your 15-minute city.
Yeah. That's perfect.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, to make a movie have the exact same accident happen right there. I mean, you know, that the predictive programming is not sci-fi, you know.
No, I mean, it's obvious.
Seems like
it. Well,
seems like it should be
the method or something. You know,
oh yeah, like because they're saying this. Yeah, like yeah. So I don't know, man. I get wild, but that is the most screwed up thing that they could possibly do to a water system.
Well,
agriculture.
Everything. They did during, remember Obama, and they had the pipeline burst or exploded or whatever it was, and it was just for months. Do you remember? It just seemed like
out in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico,
the Persian Gulf, like the BP wasn't it like the BP oil spill? And then they were down there like spraying these solvents that were like 100 times worse than the actual oil, more toxic, to disperse it so it didn't like clump up and end up on the beaches where the cameras would have seen it.
Right.
You know, so they just kept spraying the solvent onto it for months.
Yeah.
It's like that you don't see. And that was like the whole idea. And that's when I was like, fuck Obama, man. Like,
oh, I mean, dude,
this is what we voted for. Like, this is just the same old shit.
Ah, man.
It always is.
It is.
But
the new boss.
There is a thing about oil and salt water, and the algae that it creates, that like the algae lives off of. That's a total natural way for it to like just go away. It's
so the oil could have cleaned itself up just because it gets populated with a certain kind of algae or something that consumes it.
Right. It's a mess, and it's total irresponsibility of like. But see, that's the thing. When they were trying to, the angle of a drill,
a Band-Aid on it.
Well, because an angle of a drill when you go like this, right? You go straight in wood, right? But like in mud and in rock, you can do different angles. So, you know, they built up the pressure so freaking hard on that angle because they were trying to drill like someone else's they were trying to drill someone else's like oil field. Right?
Oh, they're weaseling in.
Oh, yeah. They didn't know.
What are you talking about now?
So, you know, when you drill, you can drill straight down on those platforms. But if you drill at an angle, it's safe until like, because you know the pressure of your oil field, right? But if you don't know the pressure of someone else's oil field and you're trying to drill into their oil field and it just like sends massive amounts of pressure into your pipe.
Are you saying that this happened possibly?
Yeah. I mean, because I think that whole Gulf, like half of the Gulf belongs to whatever, Colombia maybe? Or what borders it? Guatemala? It belongs to someone else. Venezuela.
Oh, so BP was busy slant drilling.
Yeah. Trying to get the milkshake.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Seepage, trying to grab the seepage, and it's just like they don't. I mean, for profit, right?
God save the queen.
Always.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always. Well, that's the whole industry of oil and the Industrial Revolution. You know, it's been selling us this shit that we don't need, you know, and destroying the fucking earth as they do it.
Now they're blaming us for it and
blaming us.
Cut it off and just leave us like, we got to
like it's our fault.
Everything's based on this now, and you're just gonna like leave us hanging here,
bro. They'll collapse a bank, and when you go to the bank to go get your money that's left in, they'll call it a run on the bank, and you're a terrorist for wanting the money that is in the bank, dude.
It's coming. It's coming.
You're the criminal for going, hey, where the hell is my money?
Right.
They're like, oh, it's gone, guy. Get out of here before you get arrested. For what? I want my money, you know?
Don't keep too much money in banks if you got any.
Totally. They bailed out that Silicon Valley bank already, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I
think so. I mean, it was obvious, dude. Sam.
Well, they're also like hedging and then like saying they would backstop all the banks and they hedge on that, and like the whole like market is going nuts, like, you know, up and down based on everything that they say coming out of the Fed, you know.
I don't know. I hear all sorts of, it's so manufactured because it's just like, you know, the interest rates went up too fast and made whatever banknotes that weren't matured impossible to like pay back. And
well, it seems like what the best analysis that I heard is that because there's so few deposits and loans transactions going on these days, that the big banks are basically, they need infusions, so they're just manufacturing this crisis so that they can bail out and absorb the smaller banks. So it's just a consolidation thing. Like everybody needs infusion, and the big banks are like, well, we're gonna get our infusion by, you know, an unfriendly takeover of the smaller banks.
Yeah.
Because
meanwhile, the CEO of the small banks, like at some point, the CEO is like, "Oh, what, you want my bank? Like, I'm here for the community." And they're like, "Oh, well, we're gonna pay you like $100 million." And they're like, "Yeah, the bank's yours. Let's destroy it." You know what I mean? It's kind of like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, it's like it's very strange, like to like absolutely just destroy the faith in like your local bank, which is like, I think that's the only way that like small businesses actually, you know, small businesses can like live outside the system. It's like,
exactly.
Yeah. And then, you know, it just kind of leads into that whole, that they're going to funnel you like cattle, right? You know,
you just made me think of something that's kind of bumming me out right now, is because I designed roundhouses. No, quite okay. I designed roundhouses, these wooden yurt houses.
Yeah.
It's been pretty okay for a number of years now, and like just in these last couple months, it's fallen off a cliff. Like my phone's not ringing, and most people that get into these type houses because they're considered unconventional, they get their mortgages through the smaller banks and local banks and credit unions.
Yeah.
So that sucks.
Yeah.
But the whole trade world has shut down in the last few months, though.
What's that?
Yeah, people are holding on to their money right now for sure.
Yeah.
At least in the trade game, something's coming.
I might have to shift gears and start like building chicken coops for folks.
Yeah, I mean, like,
dude, it's illegal to have a chicken coop in Oakland.
No, Oakland?
Yeah, it's insane. Really? Why?
Of all things, I thought Oakland, like anything goes in Oakland.
Well, yeah, I mean, chances of you getting busted for having one is basically zero.
Chicken coop
but it's still illegal. Yeah, I mean, it's insane. The stupid rules. Stupid rules. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, they try to do that everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Defund the police, but get those motherfuckers with their chicken coops, man.
Well, dude,
okay.
Have you ever like noticed like if you go to like Hawaii or you're in Mexico or anything like that, that like the amount of chickens that are just wild, just walking around?
Are they producing?
I don't know.
The ones that are wild and walking around?
I don't know, but it's like they don't seem to like, they just ruin like people's naps just as much as someone using like a leaf blower would. You know what I mean? Like,
roosters are brutal.
I had one by me for a while. It was morning alarm for sure.
Yeah, we got 6 chickens. Chicken coop last summer, and we got 6 like what do they call them? The juveniles, poulets, and one of them turned out to be a rooster, and he was waking me up. We called them they them for a while because we didn't know if it was a hen or a rooster. And it just kept crowing at 5 a.m. and at some point I'm like, sorry honey, I'm gonna have to go ahead and it's still
like, you're like serving pot stickers later that night. You're like, oh,
I still got it in the freezer, like,
awesome.
Put any kind of animal in a freaking pot sticker, I'll eat it, dude. I'll tell you what. Remember soy sauce and hot sauce? Go.
little
Apparently,
horizontal.
you have to cook roosters a certain way. They coco vin, I think, is the recipe where it's like you cook it in wine and it kind of
Oh, really?
gets the like the toughness out of the meat,
Oh, yeah.
and then you put it in the pot sticker.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Dice it up, just you know, make it.
Mm.
You know, I mean, I would still eat it. Just put it like in a tamale or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna eat it, man. I mean,
Yeah.
he woke me up for 2 months. So I'm
Yeah,
gonna eat it.
Oh yeah, he deserves it. He deserves to get eaten.
yeah. Get him in a tamale or a taquito. You don't know what the chewy part of it is. Deep fry it. You know.
And then we lost another hen last month to I think it was a Cooper's hawk because I saw the hawk like it kept like showing up and like stalking the chicken coop. I'm like, you fucker. And like I ended up with a dead, and he didn't even eat the whole bird or anything. He just killed it bad, like ate it. Like I sorry to be graphic, but like I went out there, there's just like this feathers everywhere, the body's there, and the head's like the neck is like pulled out, and it's like innards of its head were eaten, like the eyeballs and brain. Whoa. That was it. Like just went for the delicacy.
Yeah.
I'm like, you bastard. Like at least,
fine cuisine.
I saw this thing on Nature's Metal. You guys follow that?
Mm-mm.
You know what?
Wait, I've seen it. Nature is Metal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
it's gnarly.
These vultures had like caught in the fucking two vultures teamed up to kill a coyote. And they wouldn't let it up. And a coyote is like a 40-pound dog, right?
Wow.
And they got it
on it and just just eating it away while it was still alive, man. Birds are the most brutal, they're brutal, man. The way they can come in from anywhere, anytime, silent. And I was like silent.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine a fucking 20-foot wingspan hawk coming
pterodactyl.
Yeah.
Like, get in the cave.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, hey fellas, listen, I'm hearing the dinner gong going off.
Okay. All right. Hot stickers and tamales, huh?
Hey,
yeah.
Hey, maybe a quick question though, real quick. In your concrete fucking research, have you learned anything about is the water important? How important is the water that they use to mix the concrete? Like,
I mean, I always learned that it has to be clean.
Like,
and I never really thought about it like city water versus like well water or something like that. Like I know admixtures, like the chemical composition of concrete is really precise. So if you have water that's been treated and it's got like bleach and whatever, or fluoride and all this bullshit, like I don't know, that'd be interesting if it's too much, like if it's just trace amounts. But when they say clean, they mean like not dirty.
What about salt water?
Oh, salt water is that's the enemy, which is interesting. How you can have these old concrete structures out in the ocean. It's really amazing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, I asked that because just will cut me short if I do blabber on. I don't want your dinner to get cold, but I retrofitted Alcatraz, a jailhouse, a little over 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And we had to retrofit the concrete because supposedly they used salt water when they poured most of that building, and all the steel in there was bursting out of it.
Yeah.
And I was never sure if that was actually the case or not.
Oh, but I mean, they built
interesting.
You said they built Alcatraz using salt water in the concrete?
The above ground main jail. That's what they said. That's what they said. And why that whole building's still there. I mean, it doesn't make sense. The more interesting thing is the original jail is actually underground. And it's all brick, and it's completely closed off to the public. Like maybe you could do special tours down there, but the regular tour you can't go down there.
Is it like a dungeon like a dungeon jail?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Absolutely dungeon. Yeah.
Nuts.
Yeah. Maybe next time I'll show some pictures or something.
All right, man.
That's interesting. Hell yeah,
Cool.
dude.
Good to see
Awesome.
you guys
Pick up
again.
on Alcatraz when we meet again.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do it again soon.
Far out. Well,
Yeah.
I'll send my report from Dublin,
Hell yeah.
and then
Can't wait
maybe
to
on
see
the
it.
flip side of that, we'll circle back around and we'll do this again.
Let's do it.
All righty.
All right.
Later.
It's been fun.
Right on. I'll send you the shit.